are doing such heroic efforts. And I also think this is going to be transformative and formative for society. You think about our children. I have my daughters here with me. This is the first time they've faced a real national adversity, right? Oh, you have a whole new generation who have never lived through anything like this. They never went to war. They were never drafted. They never went through a national crisis. And this is going to shape them. And I can tell you just from having my daughters with me, yeah, they're hurt, they're scared, but they are also learning through this. And at the end of the day, they're going to be better people for it, and they're going to be better citizens for it. I believe that, because they're rising to the occasion. And as we go through this, let's make sure that we're teaching them the right lessons and the right response. And those lessons and that response are the lessons that we get from our better angels. And during this difficult time, let's listen to the voices of our better angels as individuals, as families, as a community, and as a society. We're going to get through this. The only question is how we get through it and when we get through it. But let's make sure at the end of the day that we can say we are the better for it. And our children are the better for it. And I believe they will be. Questions?
On the budget, are talks underway for surgeon ventilators to New York, or what's the actual plan for getting ventilators to New York? How might it actually work when it can start?
We have stockpiles of ventilators. They are all across the state. Any hospital that needs ventilators, we get them ventilators from the nearest stockpile.
I think from the surge from the nation, from the national stockpile to New York, you were saying that you were, thinking that the president is going to be taking steps to use the Ventilation
Yeah,
Act.
we are talking to the federal government about more ventilators. We're talking to the federal government about more overflow beds. We're shopping for ventilators ourselves. We're splitting ventilators. We're converting anesthesia ventilators to normal ventilators. So we are all over the ventilator issue. The number, hold on one second. The number of ventilators we need is so astronomical. It's not like they have them sitting in the warehouse in the federal government. There is no stockpile available. The federal government is doing what we're doing, which is you have to find those ventilators or convert ventilators or get additional companies to manufacture ventilators. Jess? Yeah, there is, but there's not a stockpile that is large enough to meet the national need.
You said yesterday that the projections were showing that the hospital rates seem to be slowing. Today we see a 40% increase in hospitalization. Were the projections wrong? Are you redoing those projections? How do you write those two figures?
You don't. When you talk to the projection models, what they'll say is you get a fluctuation. They don't know if it's a deviation in what the hospitals happen to report that day, because remember, this is self-reported data from the hospitals, Jesse. So they say you get a fluctuation from time to time. Don't look at any one day. Don't look at any period less than 3 or 4 days in sequence. So we'll just continue to watch it.
By the same token, you said.
Excuse me 1 second, Karen.
Sorry. By the same token, you said today and yesterday that PPE is not a problem, but then we had these kind of troubling reports that some nurses were using trash bags and kind of improvising. Can you write those two statements as well?
Yeah, we've called the individual hospitals. There's no doubt that in the past few days, there's maybe the distribution is a little start and stop, but we have enough PPE. And the New York City officials say they have enough PPE for the New York City hospitals. Melissa, is that right? You had the
Yeah, I
conversation?
spoke to Ken Davis from Mount Sinai this morning, reacting to the New York Post story I know we all saw, and he assured me that they have all the PPE that they need there. I checked in with Mitch Katz at H&H and Emma Wolf in New York City. They've got all the PPE that they need in New York City. So as these individual stories are popping up, they're reacting to them in real time, but they continue to assure us that they have what they need at the moment, and we've assured them that if they don't, we will get them what they need immediately.
We have enough PPE in stock for the immediate need. Not past the immediate need, but for the immediate need, and we keep shopping. Karen?
Budget, the quarterly reevaluation, is that something that you would do? Would you do it in conjunction with the legislature? And what advice would you give to school districts and local governments how to cope with that?
Look, we're all coping with the same thing, first of all, right? The federal government has a revenue loss. State governments have a revenue loss. City governments have a revenue loss. So no one can say, Karen, well, I don't accept this reality of a revenue loss. It is a reality for everyone, and everyone has to adjust to it. I'm sure there'll be some people who say, well, I shouldn't have to adjust to it, you know? I should be held harmless from reality. No one's held harmless from reality. Go tell any family out there, you know, reality doesn't count. So everyone is going to have to deal with the reality. I can't protect them from the reality. The way and again, we've never done this before. Doesn't mean we can't, just that we never have. But what we're thinking about is quarterly or something like that, adjustments that are almost mathematical reflections of what the revenues are. In other words, you know what the revenue projection is, and you know how much money you've made for that quarter, right? And whatever that deviation is would be automatic. It would be done by the division of the budget. I don't believe the legislature is going to want to come up here every quarter and go through numbers. At this rate, with the spread of the virus, you know, I don't even know that it would be responsible to ask for a convening of the legislature periodically. But that's the general concept we're talking about. This is all a reaction to what the federal government did yesterday. I was shocked that they were so irresponsible in addressing the state and the city need. I mean, I never believed that they would just pass a piece of legislation that didn't address it. You know, they just did not address the revenue shortfall. They provided money for COVID, the amount of money we're spending on the virus, but they just did nothing on the revenue loss. You know, they know we have to fund education. They'll all say in their speeches, education, education, it's our children's future. And then they do absolutely nothing in the legislation. So I want to keep it in check. As I said, emotion is a luxury, right? To be angry is a luxury. We don't have that luxury right now. Let's just deal with the facts. Let's get through it. Let me ask Rob Mejica, who is the mastermind of the budget, if I said anything wrong, or is that what his plan is? Or sometimes he has plans that he doesn't tell me about, Karen, so.
No, we would look at our revenue forecast. Right now, the governor said $10 to $15 billion is how much we project to be below forecast. So we'd project that out over the quarters and bi-monthly. Those are transparent. You'll see what the revenues are every month, and we'll adjust spending according to how the revenues come in. And that will be reflected. Everyone will see those. The comptroller will see those. And the goal is to be transparent up front so that school districts can see this is what would happen if we don't reach the revenue forecast. So they would know what would happen each quarter.
We're getting some reports about hospitals in Buffalo who say that they're close to running out of PPE supplies in the next week and a half or so, as early as that. Is there a plan to maybe direct more of that to Western New York, to the Buffalo area?
Yeah, first of all, Nick, anyone can give you a report that they're close to running out of PPE in a week and a half. I am close to running out of PPE in a week and a half, right? That is the status across the country. When I said we have enough of the immediate future, I mean the immediate future. We don't have enough for the long-term supply. The numbers are that fast. But any hospital anywhere, whatever we have, we'll distribute. And we distribute it on an as-needed basis. So to say I need it in a week and a half, frankly, we're dealing with hospitals that need it tomorrow and the day after. That's the kind of time frame that we're dealing with. But we're doing everything we can. We're buying from China. I have people calling and volunteering private planes to go to China to pick up materials. I mean, it's really been extraordinary. But anything we have, we will distribute.
New York City health officials have said
Zach,
that
I stopped Zach
On the policy
twice.
side, State Senator Diane Savino said that the gig worker task force, there just wasn't enough time to resolve outstanding differences in time for the state budget deadline. What's your response?
You know, the gig worker task force, I have to step back, Zach. I said I want to do everything because I don't want to just do a budget. I want to do the policy initiatives we need to do because my expectation at this point is there's going to be a budget and nothing else. Normally, we pass a budget and then we come back for weeks and discuss policy matters. I don't know at this rate that there are going to be weeks of legislative discussion afterwards. So I'm trying to get as much done as we can in the budget. The caveat is there are some issues that you really have to talk through and think through, and the language is important and the details are important. Otherwise, you pass a bill. It's not about passing a bill, right? The legislature focuses on passing a bill. I focus on passing a bill that is the best and smartest bill you can pass, and that you're not going to have to come back and redo the next year because you didn't think it through. The gig economy is a complicated issue, and I don't believe we're going to get the gig economy done in time for the budget. If they do come back and they do stay for weeks and we have time to talk it through, fine. But if you are asking me, are we going to be ready by next Tuesday? I don't think so.
New York City health officials have said that outpatient testing should not be promoted, it should not be, quote, encouraged, promoted, or advertised. You're saying the complete opposite, that we should be testing and testing as much as possible. How do we square the two if we're seeing conflicting messages from the state and city on this?
Well, you test, if the city doesn't have the capacity, well, it's a capacity issue, right? If you have the capacity to test. Because flatten the curve. How do you flatten the curve? There's only two ways. Density control, keep people away from each other, and test. How did China do it? How did South Korea do it? How did everybody do it? Density control and testing. If you don't have the capacity to test, and you can only test people, for example, who are coming into your hospitals, then you don't have the ability to do it. But if you have the ability to do it, because it's a way to flatten the curve. If you don't have the capacity and the ability, then you don't do it.
City hospitals are struggling right now and close to reaching capacity. Elmhurst, I think, was running at 125% at this point. How close are we to sending patients upstate where there is more availability?
We have, it goes in tranches. We have more overflow capacity, well, first, within that hospital system, you would distribute patients, right? So within New York City, one hospital is at 125%, let's say. Okay, distribute within that hospital system, because not all the hospitals are at capacity. Second, you have overflow facilities that we're constructing. I'm going back to Javits tomorrow. The other ones that we've been discussing. You'd only do the regional distribution once you get past everything you can do within that area. I'm not eager to redistribute people from downstate to upstate. They're just practical consequences. The family would have to travel further to visit them, et cetera. So that's the last option.
Governor, there seems to be a migration of families and individuals from the New York City area into upstate. counties, would you consider either a travel ban or authorizing these counties to mandate a 14-day quarantine?
The counties can come with whatever suggestions they want. I'm not, I don't have any mandating any travel ban on my agenda.
In Florida, the governor there has imposed a 14-day quarantine for anyone coming in from New York State since it's the epicenter right now. Do you think that's an appropriate step? And do you think people who are, leaving on private planes for their second home should be banned from doing that?
Yeah, I'm not a doctor. I have a sister who is a doctor. A little doctor envy. I'd refer back to Dr. Zucker's comment from yesterday. He's the health commissioner from the state. He had strong opinions on that issue, and I'd refer back to that.
The governor is using the National Guard and law enforcement to enforce that prohibition. I mean, do you think that's an appropriate state? Do you have concerns for New York residents who are leaving?
Well, Dr. Zucker's position was it's not necessary, and I would agree with Dr. Zucker.
We've talked about the apex, but how many days on the most conservative estimate until we run out of ventilators?
How many days on the most conservative estimate until we run out of ventilators? The maximum projection of an apex number for ventilators was about 40,000, right? We have maybe about 12,000 in that range, ventilators. That's before you talk about anesthesia machines, before you talk about splitting, and that number changes. We don't have an estimate for when we would get there, and hopefully we never do.
What's your message?
For getting more testing kits upstate.
Any hospital that needs more testing kits, again, we don't have enough. Hospitals tend to like to have supplies for a prolonged period of time, which I understand. So they want to have a 1-month supply, a 3-week supply. We don't have that ability. If we can provide a few days' supply, that's what we're looking at, which makes them uncomfortable, I understand, but that's just the situation we're in. But any hospital that needs supplies immediately, the Department of Health can provide them. Anyone who needs a test, and if the hospital doesn't have the supplies, we have mobile testing units that can go test a person. So they just have to contact the Department of Health.
On this question, you were asked yesterday, but just to reemphasize, there's no plan in place for like a ventilator protocol where certain patients would be prioritized over others. And also, on the issue of construction workers, is there a reason they're being treated as essential workers? We've heard complaints from some who feel like they're working on top of each other. These are not sanitary conditions. Why are construction workers included?
Yeah, we're looking at that now, Jesse. I understand the point, and I hear the point. I think some construction is essential, right? But it is something we're looking at, because I understand the point, and it sounds right to me. Yes, yes.
The Department of Labor today reported 3.3 million people have filed for unemployment. What's your message? And it's probably a lot more considering the people who can't apply or have been waiting in line. What's your message for the people who have lost their jobs over the last several days?
Yeah, it's not, no one has lost their job, I would say, to provoke them. We have all lost our jobs. It's different. When you lose a job, it tends to suggest maybe you did something wrong, maybe it was your performance, a statement, an evaluation of you. This has nothing to do with you. It's the circumstance that we are in, and we must correct it. There's a strength in the fact that it's all of us, right? When it's just you, then you're on your own. When it's all of us, that suggests we have to do something about it because the collective demands it. And that's where we are. I am sure it is a terrible feeling and a frightening feeling for everyone, Nick, for everyone. Nobody's been here before. I'm out of work, my business is closed, I don't have a paycheck, I can't leave the house has the family in it, or I'm all alone. No one has been here before. And that's why, look, it is going to change us. I really believe that. It is going to help form a new generation. I can see it in my daughter's eyes when I talk to them about this every night. I can see the fear. I can see their eyes open wide. They're taking it all in. What does it mean? This is going to form a new generation, and it will transform who we are and how we think. But you're not alone. You're not alone. Nobody is alone. We are all in the same situation. Let's do someone who hasn't answered a question, if that's okay.
What's the plan for?
Ask a question.
What's the plan for schools beyond the original shutdown order, particularly for school board elections, the regents exams in the spring? What's the longer-term plan for school districts?
We're looking at on an ongoing basis, unless you want to add something, James?
The only modification to that is the ELA exams, the math and science exams were suspended, basically canceled for this year by the State Education Department. As the governor said, the school closure plans are set to come back on. We're looking at that right now.
Let's take one more from someone. Did he answer your question?
Sort of, but like New York City's already said they're closed till at least April 20th. This order only goes to April 1st, so just like how should schools be planning for that?
We're evaluating, the governor's evaluating that now, and there's going to be a decision on whether to extend the closure. Remember, the 180-day waiver ends effectively April 1st, so whether to extend it or not is being considered by us right now, by the governor right now.
Let's take one more from anyone who hasn't asked a question.
A couple of days ago, you mentioned getting people back to work, and we have to start thinking about that. Do you have a plan for that now, or is that still something that you're working out?
It's something the nation is working out, something that we're working through. And I think the smartest way forward is a modified public health strategy that dovetails and complements a get back to work strategy, right? What we did was we closed everything down. That was our public health strategy. Just close everything. All businesses, all workers, young people, old people, short people, tall people, every school, close everything. If you rethought that or had time to analyze that public health strategy, I don't know that you would say quarantine everyone. I don't even know that that was the best public health policy. Young people then quarantined with older people was probably not the best public health strategy, because the younger people could have been exposing the older people to an infection. So how do you modify the public health strategy to make it smarter from a public health point of view, but also starts to get you back to work? Younger people can go back to work. People who have resolved can go back to work. People who, once we get this antibody test, show that they had the virus and they resolved, can go back to work. That's how I think you do it. It's not we're going to either do public health or we're going to do economic development, restarting. We have to do both. We have to do both. That's, no, but we're working on it. And I think that's the same thing the federal government is working through. I'm going to go to work, guys. Thank you very much. No, they never fixed that bill. They never fixed it. They said they would. They never did.
Why doesn't the state really say how many healthcare workers have COVID?
Why is the state, I'm sorry?
Why doesn't the state really say how many healthcare workers have COVID and other details about cases, like where they are, exactly?
If we know it, we will release it. Thank you.